The Art of Recruiting. Standing in a garage doesn't make you a car. And signing up as a network marketing distributor doesn't mean you're a highly skilled recruiter. Golf and recruiting are simple processes. Golf is just distance and direction, two simple things, but within that it gets pretty complex. As a matter of fact, Tiger Woods, arguably the greatest golfer in the history of the game, has a swing coach, and he's been swinging a golf club since he was 3 years old. Well, recruiting also is simple, but when you break it down and you interact with people, there's a lot to learn. I want to make a promise as we start this recording. If you become a highly skilled recruiter, you should expect to be set for life financially in 1 to 3 years. And that's a pretty big promise. There are two skills that are the backbone of network marketing. One is recruiting, and the second one is learning how to get people started effectively. Working depth, and your downline is an unlimited resource of talent, is simply recruiting and getting people started in depth. It's a philosophy and a discipline. People in any area of their life, they want to excel, and certainly this is one that it would be smart to do that. The first step is to educate yourself, whether it's socially, intellectually, health, financially, is to educate yourself. But just knowing something isn't enough. If you don't develop the discipline to utilize the information you get and master the skills, it's just an exercise in futility. It would be true to say the best recruiter wins. If you were only good at one thing in this industry, recruiting would have to be your pick. Because if somebody's a great recruiter, they could virtually screw up at everything else and still build a massive business, because eventually you'd recruit talented people that would do the business in spite of you. So in essence, being a great recruiter can forgive all other areas that people may be weak or developing in. I don't encourage that, because you not only want to be a great recruiter, but you want to be a great motivator, a great communicator, a great encourager, great at getting people started, and many other skills. But it's true, if somebody was just a great recruiter, they could build a massive business. Today we're going to flesh out what recruiting is, the process, the psychology, the key elements, the techniques, strategies, and some great resources. What's the objective? To become a highly skilled recruiter. And a big part of that is your posture and your attitude. We have to realize the world wants and needs what we have. People want a level playing field. In this industry, there's no politics. It is a level playing field. People want equal pay for equal work. They want a piece of the action. And they get it here. We act as independent contractors, and most of us own the businesses that we build. People don't even think of the equity side. Now you look out there, we live in the richest country in the history of the world, and 50% of black and Hispanic women live over 65 live on Social Security alone, which you don't live on Social Security, you survive. 25% of Caucasian women over 65 live on Social Security alone. People want what we have. They want the freedom. Most Americans want to own their own business. People want to help other people. They want to pay less taxes. They want to be able to travel. They want the freedom to live where they want to live, drive what they want to drive, hang out with who they want to hang out with. They want the kind of freedom that we have. People want control of their lives. And I've never met anybody that didn't want to be financially free. Totally financially free. So the objective is to become a highly skilled recruiter. Now, Steve Shapiro, who has a wonderful album, Listening for Success, says he has a two-step formula for guaranteeing success in recruiting and sales. And the two-step formula is ask questions and listen. And that's certainly the secret of being a highly effective recruiter, is learning how to ask questions and listen. He says, I have a two-step formula to guarantee failure. It's talk and talk more. Steve says, and very insightfully, that the function of a business is to get and keep customers, get and keep distributors. That's a matter of recruiting properly, educating, and putting time and energy into the people that you interact with. I've recently had people in this industry tell me that fear is the greatest recruiting tool. And fear generally lasts about 5 or 10 minutes. Whether it's a binary or somebody with 3 applications in their hand, and they say, you know, if you sign up today, we'll put these 3 people underneath you. Fear of loss. I guess if somebody wanted to do that, they might consider selling timeshares, you know, for a living. If you leave the property, you're not going to get the discount. And I'm not a believer in fear as a recruiting tool. I've never told a dentist, what happens if your hands get crushed? I'm not a fear recruiter. Fear, as I said, lasts 5 or 10 minutes, but dreams last forever. And I want to surround myself with dreamers, not people that do things out of fear. Very important point. You know, in this industry, and to be a great recruiter, we want to be a student of human nature. And there are definitely in recruiting people to avoid. You want to avoid whiners and complainers and excuse makers, people that can't make decisions or commitments, people that are totally self-centered. One of the greatest luxuries we have in this industry is we can handpick the people we work with. That is so unusual. If you're a dentist and somebody opens their mouth and pays their bill, you're pretty much stuck with them. Even if you're a first seat captain in a 747, you can't pick the person in the second seat. But in this industry, you can surround yourself with exactly the people you want to, and we need to be students of human nature. And one element of that is we're not going to change people. And you don't build builders, you find them, and I'll explain later what a builder is. And something very important to understand in recruiting or just interaction with people, you really can't talk anybody into anything that matters. I learned this decades ago, that you can't talk somebody into being friendly. You can't talk somebody into caring about their health. You can't talk somebody into being ambitious. You can't talk somebody into being reliable. If we could talk people into things, we'd all have perfect children, wouldn't we? Yes, we would. And here's just a few insights into human nature and the way people are, because we're not going to change people. 10% of people do 90% of the work. In real estate, it's 10% of the people that do all the work and make all the money. Out of every 100 people, and I don't know why it was designed this way, 1% are self-starters, 9 or 10% are workers, and then there's the other 89, 90% of people. And you cannot build a huge organization with self-starters. And again, the 2 skill sets in this business are number 1, recruiting, and then number 2, learning how to get people started effectively. And if you get very highly skilled at getting people started, in fact, you don't have to recruit very many people. Now, theoretically, depending on your skill base and your credibility, if you recruited 1 out of 10 or 9 out of 10, depending on your skills and your credibility, if you're willing to work hard enough, you can recruit as many as you want. And theoretically, if you recruit enough, you'll find a few good ones. But I happen to think it's a lot smarter to take a rifle approach than a shotgun approach when it comes to recruiting. To pick your people, be selective. Let me give an example. 30 years ago, I was walking with Jay Van Andel, the co-founder of Amway, and I asked him, Jay, in the 10 years that you and Rich were partners in Neutralite, from 1949 to 1959, how many people did you recruit? And he said, Bob, nobody's ever asked me that before. And he thought about it for a few minutes, and he said, we probably personally recruited 500 people. And I said, Jay, out of the 500 people, how many went on to build the Amway Corporation? And he said, 5 out of the 500. We never had the 6th one for Diamond. So they became billionaires building the Amway Corporation from 5 people, and not people they got from ads. They would run ads in Michigan, Ohio. Rich was the personality. He'd go recruit him, and Jay'd come behind him and try to train him. But their attitude was, if they fog them or recruit them, some will, some won't. But that's an awful lot of work and an awful lot of people to interact with, and a lot of disappointment to get through to do that. The great news is today we have 50 years of experience to learn by. We don't have to go through 500 people to find the key 4, 5, 6 people that you need to build whatever you want to build. And I want to comment on that just very quickly. Today, with what we've learned, knowing what to look for in people and knowing how to recruit and how to get people started and how to work depth, somebody should be able to interview and interact with 20, 25, maybe 30 people to find those key 4 or 5 people. Who are these key 4 or 5 people? In all my years, every big moneymaker I've ever met in network marketing, and I've met a lot of them, make 90 to 95% of their income, 90 to 95% of their business comes from 4 or 5, possibly 6 key people. And that's what Rich and Jay did. They just happened because they didn't know what to look for in people. They just happened to have to go through 500 to find the 5 that eventually made them billionaires. But if we can, instead of going through 500, 20 or 30 or 40, for example, Doug Hartman, who at the time was the top distributor in Prime America, I spent the day with him, and I said, Doug, in the 21 years you've been in this company, how many people have you personally sponsored? And he said, 44. And I said, where does your money come from? At that time was a substantial 7-figure income. And he said, from 5. And I said, if you had to do over again, what would you do different? He said, I'd be more selective. I wouldn't sponsor so many. Now, 44 people in 21 years, not a lot of people. And he said, talk about wisdom. I would have been more selective. I would have sponsored less people, but given them more time and attention. You really, again, can't talk anybody into anything that matters. You don't build builders, you find them. What's a builder? There's a lot of words that are misused in our language. The word love, the word friendship, and certainly the word leader. You know, the word leader is thrown around, and in fact, you could build a massive organization with few, if any, leaders, but what you're looking for is builders. And a builder is somebody that's coachable and will treat this like a business. Now let me share just real quickly about a concept. I made a tape years ago called the Magic 51. And you want to get your skills to the point where you win 51% of the time. Barbara and I live in Reno, and I don't gamble in casinos because they have the edge, and I like to have the edge. You want to get your skill base in anything you do where you win 51% of the time. For example, you know, if you're a prize fighter and you've had 30 fights and you've been knocked out 30 times, you're going to have a little trouble convincing yourself you're going to win tonight. Your subconscious mind keeps score and says you're 0 for 30, you're probably going to get knocked out again. So that's why it's hard to pick up the phone, get out the door, schedule appointments if you don't expect to win. But if you win at least 51% of the time, I want to make sure at least 51% of my appointments go well, that I sponsor at least 51% of the people I talk to, get at least 51% of those people moving. And so you always want to shoot where you get your skills to 51%. Again, theoretically, if you sponsored 1 out of 10, if you're willing to work hard enough and talk to enough people, you could sponsor as many as you want to. But your subconscious mind is keeping score, and if you lose 9 out of 10 times, it's pretty hard to get yourself to drive across town to talk to George and Linda, because 9 times out of 10 you get a no. And that's what your expectation is. And a real key to performance is expectation. Because when you expect to win and when you expect to do well, you don't mind reading the books, making the phone calls, driving the miles, listening to the CDs, making the presentations, whatever it takes when you expect to win. So a real target for anybody that's learning how to be a great recruiter should get your skills to the point where you win at least 51% of the time, and I think it could go as high as 90%. Mistakes. 2 of the biggest mistakes people make in recruiting is moving too fast with somebody. I moved to Reno, Nevada 3.5 years ago, and in 3.5 years, every single person that my wife and I have sat down with to recruit, we've recruited. We have not had one no. But we move slow. We build relationships, build trust, build rapport. And frankly, there's the vast majority of people we don't want to be in business with. I mean, we've met and interacted with a lot of people. And we say, you know, nice people, great people, but we don't want to be in business with them. Either they're not a good fit, or they're not industrious, or they're not coachable, or whatever. But we screen pretty closely, because I don't like no's, frankly, and we just don't get them. So you can get your skill set to the point where you just about never get a no. I've heard on many occasions people from stage say, the reason I'm more successful than you are is because I've gotten more no's. Well, I don't buy into that. You know, if a person is getting a no at anything you ask, whether it's an appointment or to listen to some CDs, anytime a person gets a no in the persuasion, recruiting, or selling process, it's because you're asking the wrong person the wrong question at the wrong time. Anthony Robbins says if you ask enough of the right people, enough of the right questions, you'll get enough of the right answers. And that's the key. The right people, the right questions at the right time, where no is almost not an option unless they're obnoxious, in which case you're wasting your time in the first place. The second big error that people make is data dumping, giving people too much information, trying to cover too many things, trying to sell the company and the industry and the products and the marketing plan and your relationship with them in business, and just, you know, data dumping, throwing out too much information, where you throw so much information at people, it puts off, you know, making a commitment to move forward, because they're either confused or they're overwhelmed. And it's a constant battle to keep things simple. Another thing about being a great recruiter, or really good at anything, people like what they're good at. And it's fine to be great at gardening, and it's great to be good at knitting or ping pong, but you want to make sure something in your life you get good at that'll make you wealthy. And there's nothing that'll do it faster and easier than being a great recruiter. And believe me, when you become a great recruiter, you'll love it. People like what they're good at. There's 3 reasons why people get involved in this industry. And here's a key point. People respond to someone who takes a sincere interest in them. Here's the 3 reasons why people get involved. Relationships. This is definitely a relationship business. Rich DeVos and Jay Van Andel, sure, they sponsored 500 people, but the 5 that stuck and built the whole Amway Corporation were all people they had relationships with. Wally Buttricks, who mowed their lawn. Their milkmen, Fred and Bernice Hansen. Some turkey farmer friends of those. So all of the people that they recruited off ads eventually fizzled out, and the people that went on to build their empire were all people they had long-term relationships with. Relationships bring people in and keep people into this industry. A passion for the product. Money, or the expectation of money. As my best friend Ben Barreco used to say, Bob, never underestimate the power of money. People will do amazing things for money. I don't know if you've seen that TV program where people eat this, you know, fish eyes and just this disgusting things just with the hope of winning $50,000. If they guaranteed me $50,000, I wouldn't eat any of those things. But relationships, a passion for the product, or the expectation, or actually making money. And again, never underestimate the power of money. Now, a key point here in interacting, people respond to someone who takes a sincere interest in them. People know if you have your own agenda in mind, or if you really have their best interests at heart. People just pick that up naturally. Sincerity and enthusiasm can be more powerful than facts. You know, if people made decisions, I'm an engineer, so I hate to admit it, but we're emotional creatures, and most decisions are emotional decisions, and then people try to justify their decisions intellectually. And never underestimate the power of sincerity and enthusiasm in interacting with people. The best recruiters that I know are passionate people. They're passionate. They're sincere. They're enthusiastic, not jumping up and down. It can even be a quiet enthusiasm, but you pick it up that they know, and you know that they know. That just that sincerity is such a powerful tool in people's interaction, and enthusiasm is just, it's not the words, it's the music. If people made decisions just based on facts, we could probably recruit 98% of people, because when you lay out the facts, people can only come to one conclusion. Now, what happens in a prospect's mind as you're interacting with them? And this could be a friend, a neighbor, somebody you have a long-term relationship from, or somebody you're working with downline who you don't really have a relationship with. But whether they conjugate it or not, or think about it, here's exactly what goes on in a prospect's mind, and that's important to know. Number one, do I like him or her? Do I like them? That's important. People want to respond to people that they like. Do I like him or her or them? Second, do I trust them? Do they have my best interest at heart, or are they just trying to sell me a car, sell me a house? Do they really care about me? Are they taking a sincere interest in me? So number one is, do I like them? Number two is, do I trust them? Number three is, he or her or them good at what they do? Because nobody wants to get involved with somebody that's not good at what they do. I don't want to go to a dentist that's not good at what he does. I don't want to have open heart surgery by somebody that's not good at what he does. I don't want to hire a yard service that are not good at what they do. And they're thinking that. Is he good? Is she good at what they do? And fourth, and a huge issue is, what's in it for me? And isn't that the bottom line? What's in it for me? What are the benefits? Where do I fit in? And that's what we do in the recruiting process. We paint people into the picture. For example, you could walk into an art gallery and there could be a phenomenal picture of the Grand Canyon at sunset. You say, okay, that's great, but you leave the store and you don't even think about it. But if your whole family was standing right on the edge of the Grand Canyon when that picture was taken, all the people you love most in the world, the same picture, but the people you love most in the world are an integral part of that picture, you couldn't leave the store without that picture. And that's what you really do in the recruiting process, is paint people into the picture, why they would be good at it, why they would like it. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But to review, because it's so important, do I like him or her? Are they good at what they do? Can I trust them? And what's in it for me? Those are the core issues, and that's what goes on in a prospect's mind. The golden rule, and the golden rule is to treat people like you like to be treated. I don't want somebody in my face. I don't want somebody manipulating me. I don't want somebody pressuring me. You want to treat people like you want to be treated. Just give me the information, and I'll evaluate it for myself. Don't manipulate me. Don't press me. Don't play games with me. The golden rule in recruiting is treat people exactly the way you like to be treated. Be honest with people, be sincere with people, have their best interests in heart, and that's absolutely the golden rule of being a recruiter. What exactly is your sponsoring objective? Well, what it amounts to is, as I said earlier, every big moneymaker I've ever met in this industry, including Amway and Rich and Jay, 95% of their business and their income is 5, 6, 7 key people. So, of course, your sponsoring objective is to surround yourself with, depending on what your financial objective is, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 key people. And we'll discuss who they are, because people are very consistent creatures. And again, as Anthony Robbins said, it's asking, if you ask enough of the right people, enough of the right questions, you'll get enough of the right answers. So your sponsoring objective, and there is a difference between recruiting and sponsoring. To me, when I sponsor somebody, we are becoming business partners, not upline, downline. We're partners, and if I help you get what you want, I'll get what I want. So as far as I'm concerned, I give you permission to hold me accountable, and you give me permission to hold you accountable, and we're business partners, not upline, downline. And if I help somebody get what they want, I'll get what I want. Now, 2 mistakes is too many. What do I mean 2 mistakes? Well, if you stick your hand in a fire and pull it out, it'd be a little silly, wouldn't it, to stick it back in? Well, so many people do this in prospecting and recruiting. They'll do something 5, 10, 20, 30 times, and it doesn't work, and they keep doing it. If you do something, and that's where it's so important to have mentors and coaches, if you do something and it doesn't work, back up and analyze everything you do. There's a strategy to win all the time, whether it's in recruiting or anything else you do. 1 is if you have fun, and 2 is if you learn something. And learning something says don't keep making the same mistakes. If you try something, number 1, before you try something, get some coaching and guidance. I'm always amazed when people jump into this industry and they just go out shooting from the hip, and they wonder why good things don't happen. I liken it to having a 15-and-a-half-year-old and they get a learner's permit. You don't just hand them the car keys and send them out on the street. Well, when somebody comes into this industry, even if they have a sales background or a marketing background, every industry and every business has its nuances. And if somebody's really, really smart, their first 2 or 3 months in this business, they'll do 2 things. Number 1, educate themselves as quickly as they can. But number 2, don't make a move unless they get good coaching. And that'll absolutely minimize your mistakes, and it'll maximize your results. There is absolutely no substitute for proper practice. And what do I mean proper practice? It's practice doing things properly. The problem is we're incredible creatures of habit. And if you practice something wrong, you'll continue to do it wrong. For example, I don't care if it's playing golf or what it is, if you practice the wrong things, you'll get worse at it. I know people that have been playing golf for 30, 40 years that don't golf any better than they did 30, 40 years ago because they haven't practiced the right things. I know people, and you do too, that have been driving a car 30, 40, 50 years, and they don't drive any better than they did 50 years ago. Whether it's recruiting or whatever it is, even if you've been in network marketing for 5, 10, 20, 30 years, if you do the wrong things, your results will diminish. If you do the right things, your skills will increase and your numbers will go up. So it's a matter of not just practice, but proper practice, implementing strategies and ideas and tools that work. And so if something doesn't work, don't keep doing it. Get coaching, get guidance, fix it. Again, our first responsibility is to study and then to develop skills. I want to repeat real quickly how to win every time. There's a little concept, 2 words called next time. Next time I'll try this. Next time I'll do that. The whole idea is just to get better at what you do. And if you're constantly improving your skills, improving your techniques and strategies and your communication skills and your people skills, it's next time. Next time I'll be on time. Next time I'll dress well. Next time I'll have the right tools. Next time I'll be more patient. Next time I'll ask more questions. Next time I'll do it this way. Next time I'll try that. So you're constantly thinking how to do it better, how to do it different. Another great strategy is study skills. Study great recruiters. What do they do? What are the common elements? What's the structure of their presentations? Isolate some great recruiters and have them explain to you why they feel they're such great recruiters, but watch them in action. If you get a chance to get on a 3-way calls other than your own with somebody that's a great recruiter, or watch them in a public situation or one-on-ones, study great recruiters and take every chance you get to watch somebody that's a great presenter and a great recruiter. A couple of great tools. Jim Rohn's Building Your Networking Business is a must. He talks about being a great inviter because you can't be a great recruiter if you can't get the appointment. The biggest sale you ever make is the appointment. If we can't get the appointment, we can't hit a home run, that's for sure. So I call it aggressive observation. Make sure in your environment that you know who the great recruiters are, and then you watch them, you listen, you ask questions. And that's very important as an aggressive observer, is to ask a lot of great questions. We always know who the builders are. We always know the people that are going to build large organizations because they ask lots of questions, but they also internalize and use what you teach them. And remember, very important concept, people do exactly what they want to do. You know, people will listen to a CD if they want to. They'll come to a meeting if they want to. They'll get on a phone call if they want to. People do exactly what they want. We need to be students of human nature. People do exactly what they want to do. Let me give you an example. I hear from people all the time, well, I gave this person, that person, the other person a CD or a DVD, and they didn't listen to it, or they didn't watch it, or they said they were going to be on the Monday night call and they weren't on the Monday night call. People do exactly what they want to do. In being a great recruiter, it's causing people to want to do what needs to get done. Again, I refer to Steve Shapiro, and he said something very brilliant. He said the best definition of sales he's ever heard is sales is helping people easily make decisions that are going to better their life. And that's what recruiting is, helping people make decisions that are going to better their life. Not what's in it for me, but what's best for them. I wouldn't even be trying to recruit somebody if I didn't know they would be good at this or that it would be great for them. And as long as you have people's best interest, you'll be an effective recruiter. But people do exactly what they want to do. Let me give you an example. I could take 100 CDs and go into any mall in the country and get 100 people to listen to that CD within an hour. How would I do that? Just give them a $100 bill. If I give them a $100 bill and they'd have to ask 2 questions to make sure they listened to it, they'd go out to their car, play it, come back in if they believed I was going to give them the 100. But my point is, people do exactly what they want to do. If you hand out 100 CDs or DVDs and people don't watch them or people don't listen to them, it doesn't make much difference, does it? So what we're paid for is to cause people to want to do what will move the ball down the field. And I'll get back to that in just a minute, commitments from your prospect. And remember, we can't change human nature. Most people don't like to make decisions or commitments. That's why so many people struggle all their lives financially. Most people don't like to make decisions or commitments. And do you really want to be in business with people that don't like to make decisions or commitments? And human nature generally people get defensive if they perceive they're being talked into something, being recruited, being sold. Isn't that true? We walk into a store that we're not familiar with and we know what we need, and somebody says, "Can I help you?" "No, thank you." I mean, we immediately draw back. So a big part of recruiting is where people never feel any pressure. Again, the golden rule, treat people like you like to be treated. Keep it simple. Usually in recruiting, people get involved in this industry or with a business for 2 or 3 key reasons. When I got into this industry originally, I didn't get in to make millions or travel all over the world or for the tax advantages or for standing ovations or to be on stage. I got in simply so my kids could have a stay-at-home mom. And if you knew that, because I had told many people, I'd do anything short of robbing banks to have a stay-at-home mom for my kids. And that's always the greatest recruiting tool, is if you know somebody what they want that they can't have doing what they're doing. Maybe it's time, maybe it's flexibility, maybe it's freedom. We have things to offer people. This kind of a business can be very family-friendly. Don't spend your life building something that belongs to somebody else. What if you could make twice the money and work half the number of hours? What if you could dramatically reduce the taxes you're paying now? We have all kinds of wonderful things to offer people, and just realize virtually everybody out there wants and needs what we have to offer. Just give you a quick example. 70% of Americans can't afford to pay off their credit cards without refinancing their house. This year in Phoenix alone, they're expecting 60,000 repos. Now, if somebody gets their house repoed, how do they then go reestablish credit and function? People need what we have. I would be willing to bet that 90 to 95% of the people you know, an extra $1,000, $2,000 a month, net spendable income would make one heck of a difference. And as a matter of fact, in 37 years, I've never had anybody look me in the eye and say, oh, an extra $5,000 or $10,000 a month? No, I wouldn't have an interest in that. I've never had anybody look me in the eye and tell me that. So remember, we have people, the world's out there dying of thirst, and we're giving away water. It's all about posture. It's all about perception. And remember, when you're recruiting somebody, you're giving them your time and attention. And when I recruit somebody, I'm offering to go to work for them for free. So you shouldn't be timid. They're not doing me a favor. I'm doing them a favor. I'm bringing my skill, my credibility, my influence, my experience to bear for them at no cost. How many people have offered to just come over and help you paint your house or roof your house or landscape your yard, or, just, hey, we want to come over and work for you for free? Wouldn't life be great? In this industry, that's exactly what we're doing. As sponsors, we are offering to go to work for them for free, bringing our credibility, our influence, our skills, our confidence to bear in their behalf. What a wonderful thing. I mean, isn't it crazy that we're in an industry where we have to ask people to become financially independent? I mean, we have to talk people in to becoming financially independent. I have an article right here from USA Today on realtors last year, and it said real estate people that have been in real estate for less than 2 years last year averaged $15,300 in gross income. And according to the National Association of Realtors, after taxes, association fees, marketing costs, they pocketed a mere $9,400 for the year. And we're in an industry where if somebody's coachable and will treat this like a business, they should expect to be set for life financially in 1 to 3 years. So we should be absolutely confident in what we have to offer people. There are 5 structural elements in recruiting. The backbone of recruiting is confidence. Confidence in yourself, confidence in network marketing, confidence in your company, confidence in your product, and confidence in being in business with me is a great decision. Confidence is the backbone of recruiting. And when people are new, and of course confidence is something built over time, and so until a person develops enough confidence themselves in networking, in your company, in your product, in yourself, your tools, your systems, you need to lean on people that have developed the confidence. And again, it's not about running around recruiting the world. I liken it to a piano. It's not who can hit the most keys. It's hitting the right keys at the right time. It's about recruiting the right people, recruiting those builders, because you don't build builders. Now, you can accelerate people's learning curve and encouragement, tools and systems, but builders are going to build, and non-builders are, not going to build. It's that simple. You don't build builders, you find them. And I liken it to Jim Rohn. He such a great illustration. He said, you can take your ducks and send them to Eagle School and give them little eagle jackets, little eagle hats, little eagle banners, and a little eagle diploma when they graduate, but they're still ducks. And that's the bottom line. You're not going to change people. Builders are builders, people that will treat it like a business, that call you, that take direction, and that are coachable. And if somebody's coachable and will treat this like a business, their success is absolutely guaranteed. The confidence is the backbone of recruiting. But it's recruiting. I've known people in network marketing who've recruited hundreds of people and wound up with no builders. And I know people that have recruited only a few. They were selective and they were good about getting in and working with them, and they built massive organizations with a handful of people. The second part of recruiting is, who do you want on your team? It's picking the right people, presenting to the right people, doing business presentations to the right people. Again, I refer to Anthony Robbins. He said, if you ask enough of the right people enough of the right questions, you'll get enough of the right answers. I suggest you don't go down to the Greyhound bus station or the welfare line or the unemployment line. You want people that are good at making decisions, good at making commitments. And I refer to a great CD set that Anthony Robbins did. It's an older set of tapes, 2 CDs, and it's called Awaken the Giant Within. And he talks about making decisions, not stating preferences. Most people state preferences. I want people that make decisions and make commitments. He says, saying, I want to be rich, that's stating a preference. Saying, I'm going to be rich, that's a decision. And he says a decision is when you eliminate all other possibilities. So who do you want on your team? I want people with great people skills, great phone skills, great communication skills, because if somebody's got great people skills, they could build a huge business just because people like them and trust them. I want people that are coachable, because if somebody's not coachable, they're going to crash, because it's just too frustrating to learn everything the hard way. I want people that are reliable. When they say they're going to do something, they do it. When they say they're going to be somewhere, they're there. I find that's about 1 out of 5 people, because if somebody's not reliable, they waste your time, they drive you up the wall because you can't count on them. Number 4, I want people with significant influence and credibility. And 5th, and probably the most important, is I want somebody that's highly industrious. Euphemistically, that they had a paper out when they were a kid. Because you don't have the time or energy to run around motivating anybody. I want people that are hard workers, that are disciplined. I want somebody that's making 100, 2, 3, 4, 500,000 a year, sitting up nights trying to figure out how to double it, or how to work half the hours. Something that they really, really want, or build something that belongs to them instead of somebody else. Now, the big question when we're talking about people's prospects, or we're deciding who we want to approach, who we want to sit down with, the big question should always be not are they too busy, are they too successful? The question should always be, would Bill and Linda be great at this if they decided to do it? That's the only question in my mind, whether I'm personally recruiting or I'm recruiting downline. If they decided to do this, would they be good at it? That's the real criteria. So often people make decisions for other people. Well, gee, he's too busy, or he's too successful. Or actually, my sponsor, several people told him, there's no way in the world you'll ever get him. We had lunch, and he said, I'm the easiest person he ever sponsored. And yet, several people tried to wave him off. What a mistake to make people's decisions for him. So those are the 5 characteristics. Great people and communication skills, coachable, reliable, credibility and influence, and highly industrious. Those are the people you want to put the business in front of. Those are the people you want on your team, no question about it. Step number 3 is getting the time and attention of the right people, because often the people you really want on your team, the right people, are going 90 miles an hour, 15 different directions. How do we get their time and attention? How do we earn their time and attention? Usually it's with credibility. I call it the dream team. If you were only allowed to recruit 10 people, these would be the 10 people. And you don't want to do anything until you're coached every step of the way by somebody that knows what they're doing, because you don't want to blow those. You want to cross every T and dot every I. But how do you get their time and attention? Well, the first thing that we look at is, where do you know them from? How long have you known them? How strong is your relationship? People have to be realistic about their pull power, what they can ask for and get. Again, the reason people get no's when they ask for things is because they're asking for more than they have a right to ask for, because people do exactly what they want to do. And some people, and it's not that you're not a good person, but I refer to another DVD that I made, Setting Appointments Successfully Every Time. And the way to always get a yes is to know what you can ask for and get. There's some people you could meet for lunch, coffee. Some people, if somebody just likes you, you can get them on a phone call or get them to listen to a CD or a DVD. So earning that prospect's time and attention. Now, if it's somebody you just met or you prospected, or if you ran an ad or whatever, wherever somebody's influence and credibility, if you have enough influence and credibility with somebody, a strong enough relationship, they will give you the time and attention you need to build your case just because of your relationship. But everybody, with the possible exception of Oprah Winfrey, runs out of influence and credibility at some point. And where your credibility and influence stops, that's where your techniques and strategies have to kick in to get those key people's time and attention. But it's so important to know who those key people are. As Jim Rohn says, liars lie, quitters quit, cheaters cheat, builders build. The biggest sale you'll ever make is the appointment, because again, if you can't get up to bat, you can't hit a home run. If you can't get those key people to sit down and listen, you're not going to accomplish anything. Number 4, key element in being a great recruiter is a well-planned business/product presentations. Robbins says in his book, Awaken the Giant Within, again, let the prospect design the presentation. What does that mean? It goes back to Shapiro. Ask questions and listen. What's important to the prospect? What do they think? Are they proactive with their health? Do they have issues? Have they been in this industry successfully or unsuccessfully? What do they think? What do they want? What do they care about? And that's such a powerful statement. Let the prospect design the presentation. And I refer to Jim Rohn. He says, I would rather have a hamburger well presented than a steak in the face. You know, putting together a wonderful presentation, and there's no better presentation than one that implements everything your prospect wants, everything they like, everything they care about, and eliminates paperwork, everything they don't like, everything they don't want, and assures them that this is a good move and they're going to be successful at it. So a well-planned presentation. And a big part of that is preparation. I don't have a one-size-fits-all. Before, even on the phone or in person, coffee, lunch, or group, I want as much information as I can. In the book Swim with the Sharks, it says it's more important to know your prospect. They're basically saying the same thing Robbins is, but it's more important to know your prospect than it is your company, your industry, your product, or your marketing plan. Again, if you know what makes them tick, what they want, what they don't want, what they like, what they don't like, what they care about, what they don't care about, what their life experience has been. If they've been in 2 network marketing companies and didn't succeed, didn't get help, got frustrated, promises weren't kept, I need to know that when we interact, because in the back of their mind they're saying, you know, I'm 0 for 2. Why is this going to be different? We have to build that bridge. So preparation. Detail builds value. But again, don't throw too much at people, because they're just listening, what's in it for me? You know, and why would I be good at this? But detail builds power in a presentation. And you want to incorporate in recruiting all their senses if you can. If you go down to a BMW dealership or a Mercedes dealership, they want you to smell the leather. They want you to hear the stereo. They want you to drive the car, hear the quiet, feel the power, feel the road sense. And by giving people a sample of the product, audio, visuals, literature that they can look at, 3/4 of people are visually driven. 1/4 are audibly driven. So you want to tie together people's taste buds if you can, their sight. People remember what they see, and they don't remember that much of what they hear. And they believe what they see, and they don't believe that much about what they hear. So you want to use visuals and validation as much as possible. Incorporate all their senses in a presentation and the follow-up. Another concept that I think is important. The recruiting process is a lot like running a dating service. It's getting the right people with the right people. People need to relate and identify. They need to meet people and they say, well, if she can do it and she could do it, I could do it. People are always measuring. So you've heard the statement, facts tell, stories sell, and it's really true. You know, Scripture is mostly stories. Even if you haven't read the Bible, everybody knows the story, the sower, the seed, and the principle. Everybody knows the prodigal son. People never forget stories, whether it's product stories, business stories. And so you want to have a collection of great stories. This is a storyteller's business, and becoming a great recruiter is really the best storytellers. True, accurate stories, but picking out the right stories that fit the situation, the circumstances and the background and the interest level of those people is so important. A well-planned business product presentation, and we have lots of options. It could be a group recruiting call, a 3-way call, a CD that presents the business or DVD, in-home group or in a restaurant, in a group or targeted group. It could be just a group of real estate people. And one-on-ones, which is always my favorite, you know, belly to belly. Because ultimately, have you ever bought a car in a group? Have you ever bought a refrigerator in a group? Have you ever bought a home in a group? It always comes down to one-on-one. Again, do I like him? Do I trust him? Is he good at what he does? And what's in it for me? So we have lots of options to recruit until a person becomes a great presenter and a great recruiter. Prepare the ground before you plant. Just like a farmer does, prepare the ground, ask questions, listen, gather information. Is there some health issues? What's their background? What do they want? What do they care about? Prepare the ground before you plant. One of the biggest mistakes people make in recruiting, again, is trying to move too fast and trying to throw out too much information. How you frame things is so important, framing the invitation. And again, I go back, and it's such a brilliant statement that Jim Rohn makes. I'd rather have a hamburger well presented than a steak in the face. So how you frame your presentation, how you personalize it, again, sincerity, enthusiasm, preparation, you validate what you say, stories, examples. These are all about framing the presentation properly, the right time at the right place. And that's a big part of recruiting, too, is picking the time and the place. Napoleon said, half of winning the battle is picking the time and the place and being in control of all the variable elements. Let me give you an example. And sometimes recruiting is a sprint, and sometimes it's a distance race. It took my wife and I recently 3 years to recruit our best friends in Phoenix. The timing just wasn't right. And yet one of my biggest distributors, Jim and Candy up in Sacramento, I called them when I first got started. I didn't need to give them any information. They said, Bob, if you're doing this, we're in. So it took me 1 minute to recruit them, and it took us 3 years to recruit. So patience is a big part of being a great recruiter, because you could have the right person at the wrong time. And if there's somebody that I really want on my team, I've got infinite patience. I'm going to get them sooner or later when the timing is right. And you don't want to nag them or bug them or beg them at all. You cannot build this business from your knees. But I call it dripping, just sharing information, updates, in just a gentle, sincere way. We just call it dripping on a prospect. But again, sometimes I drove down my driveway. We live up in the mountains, and I have a 600-foot driveway. And I drove down. There was a contractor down at the bottom of the driveway working on the neighbor's house. And he saw my license plate, and he said, do you sell our product? And I said, yeah. He said, I need 2 cases. And I said, no problem. Give me your business card. And he said, is there any money in this? I said, well, there's a lot of money if you treat it like a business, so we're having lunch on Tuesday, just driving out my driveway. And so it's just about being prepared for any situation, being fast on your feet, and key phrases and elements to get people's interest. But again, everybody's different. Our best friends took us 3 years to recruit, and yet this other incredible couple in 1 minute, and it's because of our history. And the reason it was so easy to recruit them is because we had such a great relationship, credibility and influence. But again, where your credibility and influence stops, when you're working down your downline, they don't even know who it is, that's where your skills and your techniques. Because if you're not a great recruiter, if you're not a great presenter, you're of very little value to your downline. In working depth and teaching people. It's about validation. It's about teaching. And so being a great presenter takes a little bit of time. My first year in network marketing, I never tried to present my business to anybody because I didn't think I had the skills, the credibility. So I would take them to a meeting. So that's the only option we had then. So until you become a great presenter, a great recruiter, lean on people who are. We used to kid with people, get the dog and the cat and do a couple of dozen presentations. And then when you get real brave, sit the kids down and do a couple dozen more. There's just no substitute, for experience, for getting out there on the firing line. The way we learn is repetition and involvement. And a big thing to learn also is use the tools. CDs, DVDs, visuals, validation, articles, but building rapport and trust is so important in the presentation, because whether you have a room full of people or a stadium full of people or one-on-one or a phone call, it's preparation, it's proper use of tools, it's building rapport and trust. When I did 9 three-way calls yesterday with high-powered people from all over the country, and in each case, we spent a considerable amount of time. I let each one of those prospects know that I knew who they were. I didn't have a one-size-fits-all presentation, that I've done my homework, that I knew he was successful in real estate, and I knew this other one was successful in financial planning business and so forth. So where are they from? We talked about commonalities. The one fellow, where he lived, one of my best friends lived up the street. But until you build some rapport and trust and get a good two-way communication, you don't try to start the persuasion process until there's some rapport, until you have some good give and take, and they've decided they like you and they trust you and you're good at what you do. So I don't start the presentation process until we warm it up and there's some trust there. Because, again, if people don't like you and they don't trust you, and commonalities help that. You know, if they like to ski at Mount Rose Ski Area, which is right above where we live, that's a commonality. So we always try to find common experiences. I always ask people where you're from originally. And we try to find common ground. Usually, I know ahead of time, a lot of common elements so that they relate and identify, and you get a feel from where each one of you is coming from. But if you're trying to recruit people, before you build trust, before you build rapport, you're taking a long walk on a short pier, really. And the fifth element of being a great recruiter is the fortune is in the follow-up. Follow-up, 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 follow-up. But a big part of follow-up is to identify the people that aren't worth the effort, because you can't spend that kind of time and attention with everybody. So if people don't like to make commitments, they don't like to make decisions, they're not reliable, all those things, I don't have 2 minutes patience for people that are whiners or complainers or excuse makers or can't make decisions. But when I want somebody on my team, again, I have infinite patience. I'm going to get them sooner or later. But the fortune is in the follow-up. You want to have a system where you get back to people and you share information and you keep in touch in a very positive way so that they always feel good about it. Because when people's circumstances change, I want the first call they make to come to me. And again, that's the golden rule. My rule is I can't control if somebody responds or not, but I can control if I've done my job, if I'm on time, if I did my homework, if I did my preparation, if we used the right tools, if we focused right, did a great presentation. I focus on what I can control, whether they responded or not. My goal in interacting with anybody, whether it's somebody I'm personally recruiting or somebody downline, is that they felt good about the whole process. They felt they were handled professionally, they were given great information, and they have a great positive feeling about the whole thing. They leave, in essence, with a great taste in their mouth. So down the road, when their situation changes, their circumstances change, we're the first ones they're going to call. And that's always should be your goal in a recruiting meeting of any kind, is to leave people with lots of great information and with a great taste in their mouth, where they'll never be negative about this industry or your business to anybody else. We never want to create bad will. There's an old saying in the business, don't get a person unless you can get them a person. And that's not giving a person, but why would I want to recruit somebody if I don't have a lot of confidence that I can help them sponsor some people? Otherwise, where's it going? Don't get a person unless you know you can help them get a person. And here's the 2 questions I always ask. Does this person have the influence and credibility to put me in front of some quality prospects? That's question number 1. Does he or she have the influence and credibility to put me in front of some good quality prospects? And number 2, can I cause them to want to do that because they're going to do exactly what they want to do? A key element, and really should be your number 1 objective of a presentation, whether it's a group presentation or a one-on-one, 3-way call or whatever, is to schedule the next step. Get the prospect to agree to do 2 or 3 specific things to move the ball down the field. The number one goal of any meeting that you have, any recruiting meeting certainly, to get the prospect stimulated to the point where they will agree to do 1, 2, 3, 5, or 10 things that are going to move the ball. And it could be to watch a DVD, to listen to some CDs, go on and look at your website, to make a list of questions, to pick out their dream team, depending on, where their response level and commitment level is. Schedule the next step. If you leave a meeting and you don't have your prospect hasn't agreed to do some specific things, if you haven't scheduled the next step to answer their questions, or let's meet again when you go through the material, you've just wasted your time. You have loose ends all over the place. You go from meeting to meeting to meeting. So your number one objective of every recruiting meeting is to have the prospects commit to doing some specific things to move the ball down the field and schedule the next step. Phil, I know when you listen to these CDs, you're going to have some great questions. Let's see, today's Tuesday. I want to answer the questions while they're fresh in your mind. What would be a good time for us to talk on Thursday? And we schedule an appointment. You go from appointment to appointment to appointment. What most people do is they'll make a presentation and there's nothing settled or committed, and then they have a loose end and the tail's wagging the dog, and what should take 3 days could take 3 weeks or 3 months. And the prime 2 questions of anybody I'm interacting with, because virtually everybody you know, whether they jump into business with you or not, virtually everybody you know, they can either be a builder or they could be a connector. And a connector is just somebody that can lead you to a builder. And my ultimate question is, Fred, if you were going to bet $10,000 of your own money on any 2 people you know to do well at this, who would you bet on besides me? Those are the 2 people. I'm going to figure a way to have him connect me to those 2 people. And I don't look at what people can't do or won't do. I always look at what will they do to move the ball down the field. And that's a big part of the recruiting, because if somebody just signs up and buys some product or pays some money, that doesn't make them a distributor, no more than standing in a garage makes you a car. Again, the 2 questions: does my new distributor have the influence and credibility to put me in front of some quality prospects, and can I cause them to want to do that? Those are the 2 big questions. How do you know if you have a builder or a connector? Well, really it's pretty quick. A builder is somebody that's coachable. If you coach them, give them a couple of specific things that they agree to do and they don't do them, they don't internalize it, they don't incorporate it, or they don't do what they say they're going to do, they are a connector at best. A builder is coachable and will treat it like a business, and it shouldn't take very long. Builders are always calling you. You know when you have the right people. It's like hitting a golf ball. You may go out and have 90 strokes on a golf course, but there's 5 or 6, you make 5 or 6 great shots. It's just effortless. You just hit the ball in the sweet spot, and that's what keeps people coming back. It's the same way in recruiting. You may interact with 80, 90 people or even 100 people to get those 4 or 5 builders. But boy, when you hit it in the sweet spot, it is absolutely effortless. You don't have to wonder who your builders are, because you don't have to talk them into anything. You don't have to promote anything. They're hungry. They listen. They ask questions. And when you give them some direction, they take action. You don't have to wonder who your builders are. They just display themselves. But as you build a massive organization, I call it spotting sparkles, and you might have a builder on your 10th level in your 8th leg or whatever, but those people will pop up. You'll see them. You won't have to look for them. It'll be pretty obvious where they are. But again, we can stack the deck by looking at the right things: great people skills, coachable, industrious, credibility and influence. By looking at those things and directing people who they want on their list, who they want on their dream team, we can stack the deck. So unlike Rich DeVos and Jay Van Andel, we don't have to go through 500 people to find our key 4, 5, 6 people. We can screen 20, 30, maybe 40, and what that amounts to, you get 4 or 5 key people. You find 4 or 5 builders and then help them develop builders, and you'll be set for life financially in 1 to 3 years. One just last tip that I'd like to share: control the controllables. I don't fret. I could plan the perfect picnic and then it rains all that day, and I don't get upset about it because I don't control that. It just doesn't make sense to get upset about something you don't control. I can control if I do my homework, do my preparation, if I have my tools, if I'm on time, dress well, prepare for the meeting, do a good communication job. So I focus on the things that I control. I don't ultimately control another person or how they respond. I can ultimately control how most people respond by doing a great job. But in any given situation, I can't control how somebody responds because there's hundreds of things going on in their life I have no possibility in knowing about that can control how they respond and how they make decisions. And we all never know all the factors in a situation, so I don't focus on results. I focus on, did I do a good job? Did I do the best that I could do? And how do I do it better? And so I don't beat up on myself. It's all about developing this great recruiting skill. When you think about it, you've recruited. I've had people tell me, Bob, I'm not a recruiter. Well, you better be. Because in life, your friends, your spouse, your support group, your mentors, everybody that's important in your group, with the possible exception of the family you got born into, you're going to recruit. So you want to be a great recruiter. And if you become a great recruiter, particularly in this industry, again, you should expect to be set for life financially in 1 to 3 years. Even if you're just starting today, today's your first day, you're only 3 builders away. And yes, you may have to kiss a few frogs, to find your 3 builders. But you're only 3 builders away, 3 or 4 builders away from being financially independent. What does that mean? No, it's not relying on somebody else's 3, 4, 5%. It's about making enough money where you can sock away 30 or 40% of it, learn how to invest it, and through those investments, it's not what you make, it's what you do with what you make. And the whole idea is to develop enough cash flow where you can take a big slice of that, learn how to invest it in a very short time, you can be set for life. Let me say this. Again, golf and recruiting is easy. My wife and I recently went to Alaska. You say, well, gee, if you spend all the money to go to Alaska and you go up on the Kenai River and you hire a guide and you got a boat and you're in this beautiful environment, the king salmon are just going to jump in the boat, right? Because all you see is the people with their fish hanging. You think, oh, man, that's easy. You spend all that money and all that time and everything, and they just jump in the boat. Well, I found out when we were up there that on average it takes a fish 18 hours of fishing to catch 1 king salmon. Of course, the limit's 2, 1 a day for 2 days, but 18 hours per fish. Even in Alaska, where the rivers are full of these fish, 18 hours for fish. Well, yeah, it may take you 90 days to find a builder. It may take you 6 months or a year to find 2 builders, but the fact of the matter is 3 builders and you're set for life, virtually. Is it worth it? Absolutely. Yes, I did get my 2 king salmon. Had 1 smoked and 1 filleted. And golf is kind of the same way. You may go out and hit 90 strokes on a golf course, but you probably got 5 or 6 great shots. So are you going to recruit everybody? No. Is everybody you recruit going to be great, going to be a builder? If you accomplish that, you'll be the first person I've ever met that did. We all have to kiss a few frogs. No matter how smart we get, how educated we get, how great of a presenter, how great of a recruiter we are, nobody wins all the time. It wouldn't be any fun if we did. I want to leave you with just one thought. Recruiting is a skill. Certainly we all have personalities and different verbal abilities and so forth, but you can always make up for that with skill and preparation and diligence. And the bottom line that I want to leave you with is you think about it. It's amazing when people get in this industry and they quit. It's devastating when you have a job and you get fired. But in this industry, when you quit, you're firing yourself. And you think that's really depressing when somebody gives up on themselves and fires themselves. That's crazy. But There's nothing in the world thousands of other people can do that you can't do. There's no way in the world thousands of other people can become effective, great, highly skilled recruiters, and you can't. If you're coachable, and you'll treat this like a business, your future is absolutely guaranteed. I just encourage you to take this CD because we learn from repetition and involvement. Listen to it the first time clear through, go back 5 or 6 times, take notes, and then every month for the next 12 months, pull it out and re-listen several times. Because, again, you become a highly skilled recruiter and you can write your own check. I applaud you for your time and effort, for investing in yourself, educating yourself. Now I just hope you take what you learn and develop the discipline to apply it. God bless.